Oh, welcome. We're back to the water. Of course, it's an absolute lovely day. It rained first thing this morning, and then we went into Halifax and did a bunch of things, but that's not what I'm talking about today. Today we're going to talk about that the CEO for Ubisoft is upset over malicious and hateful attacks on their team members and their partners. Really, this is what it comes down to. I was reading an IGN article and they were linking this back to the Sweet Baby Inc. because they are a partner with Ubisoft. There's even possibility that they helped fund Sweet Baby Inc. And this is the same company that provoked and attempted to create a online harassment campaign over a Steam curator group with Kerbutis running that group, to the point where they tried to take down Kerbutis's own Steam account to ban him from his own video game library. This is a group that over 400,000 people have signed up with. It has been retitled to DEID or DIED for diversity, equity, and inclusion, because these things in the industry have... They've warped the industry. They've warped and twisted video games in such a way that the storytelling is bland, and they shoehorn in things that just doesn't make sense. They push forward someone else into roles that were never meant for the people that they build them around. And namely, we look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, where the new narrative with Assassin's Creed Shadows is Yasuke. Yasuke's existence was with the jet suits. It literally was a diary entry saying he was given to the feudal lord of Japan at that time in history. But that's where this story has completely warped, and it came down to one novel that came forward and pretty much making it a nonsensical and fantasy style story that this one slave that was traded among Japanese and Portuguese back in that time, that slave picked up the sword and he carried it for the feudal lord. But instead, it's been twisted into a whole new story. Instead, it's created this whole twisted up story for Assassin's Creed Shadows, saying he is the protagonist of the new game, where you have someone going around literally beheading the Japanese people, walking down in an area of, like, you're walking through these villages and you're in full gear and garb and you don't ever take it off, type of thing. And that's where that went. And now they're saying all the Assassin's Creed games are going to get a modernized update for them. You know, just quit it. Don't modernize these games. People fell in love with Assassin's Creed for the original stories, for the whole idea, these fantastical stories, much like Indiana Jones, where they were things that were based off legend, and then the supernatural came along with them as well. And it's kind of put this whole twist in it, and it made it something more. But now we have this new push. It's not even a new push. It's the last 10 or so years. We've had this push in the industry, in all industries, movies, Hollywood, video games, everything out there. Even if you look at Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer, we have this new push where it's this social governance, where it's all about social justice and pushing it forward. And that's not what people want. People don't want that. If they want social justice, they're going to do their causes and protest. But to intermingle it into a pop culture sort of scenario, no one wants that anymore. People just want to move on from this stuff and play the games they want and loved as a child and growing up. Play something that does not have this undertone where if you're playing this game, if you're not supporting this game, you're a bad person. Like, this goes back to like G.I. Joe, you know, the more you know. It always, the idea of G.I. Joe and He-Man, they always had a story in there that was a teaching moment. And those teaching moments were generally something good. It was bringing up the morals. But now we're throwing that all away and just giving things to everyone else. And that's the problem. That's the real problem with DEI. Why a lot of people like myself has spoken against it. It's not good for any industries. This was tried with affirmative action. This was done back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they made laws against it. And I think that's where it's going to have to go again, where laws go against these things. And I'm not like, a lot of people say, oh, it's right wing, it's left wing. I don't fall into these categories. I'm Canadian. It's completely different up here. The landscape up here in Canada is completely different when you talk about the political side of the aisle. It's completely different. Down in America, you get this intertwine, this warpedness when it comes to the political states, and they draw these lines, and the lines kind of get blurred a little bit more up here, where everything has shifted towards the one side. And even though you're shifted towards one side, it still pushes you further on that window. There's many different ways of describing it out there. And in all honesty, people don't need to be propped up for the stuff. Those that work hard, do things for themselves, generally come out way ahead. And that's just everything that I've seen. Like, when I go to work, I work hard. I work hard for a living, and I like to work hard. It's something I do. Do I get paid well? Well, that's to be seen. I think I should get paid a little bit more, but that's besides the point. That I think that's how most people see their job overall. But when it comes to video games and movies, they're spending millions of dollars, like $200 million for a video game. The video game should be capped maximum at $100 million for the top of the line game. But we've had games out there where they go $400 million, and it's because you get every writer in the room, and every writer in the room has to get paid, and then they have to inject their own self-identity into these games. And then you have agencies like Sweet Baby Inc. saying, you need to pay us millions of dollars so we can tell you if your game is doing enough in the social justice sphere, if your game is an activist dream enough to be promoted in the space. This is where all the award shows go now. Why I talked about how game journalists are pretty much swept off to sea, because they're out to lunch. The award shows that we've seen for many of these games lately, if you check all the boxes and people want to play the game, then you kind of already have the award for the best game in the world. Elden Ring, probably one of the best games I've played in a generation right now. And it's unfounded, the difference in that game. You don't need to worry about social justice in that game at all. You don't need to worry about a political backing. You just play the game, you have fun, you do the combat, you go through the motions, and it's an absolutely gorgeous game. But then you have the new Assassin's Creed, which is all about social justice, making the narrative changing it from what it once was. You know what? It's not that it's a bad thing that they want someone of history to come forward and pick up the mantle, but they could have done it in a different way. I believe in the Japanese culture. If people are going to play a Japanese style Assassin's Creed game, they want to play a Japanese samurai. They didn't want to play an African samurai in the game. And that's the big difference. It's a Japanese feudal lord. It's feudal lordships in that time where they were dictators. And you have the Japanese culture. And suddenly you're playing Yasuke instead of playing the feudal lord himself, or one of his actual samurai that grew up in the army. And that's the difference there. That's what people wanted to play generally, but they still, enveloped a lot of the Japanese culture in there. And then they tell a story of something that is completely out to lunch. It was completely out to lunch. And it's to the point now where the CEO of Ubisoft turned around and said, hey, this is malicious. And I don't like what you guys are saying about the game. I don't like what you're saying about our partners, even though our partners are sitting there threatening people, holding them up on a pillar and telling them, if you don't do the things we want, then we're going to bring social justice wrath against you and cancel you for your next installment. That's where the things are just wrong in the whole industry right now. You have Ubisoft literally supporting this type of thing, and they asked in their telling with the CEO, their interview, they asked for the industry to stand up against violence or against hate in a sense. And that's what a lot of us want to do, because what we see with Ubisoft right now is creating a hate-filled environment, and because they don't want to tell the truth. They don't want to sit there and actually tell the truth. They don't want to tell a story that is more meaningful. They just want to tell you that if you're not going to play these games, if you're not going to support these games or support these actions, then you're the hateful one. And it's like, that doesn't make me want to play the game. That doesn't make a lot of people want to play the game. That turns people off, right? They're going to do the exact opposite of what you want them to do. And that's why we sit there in the industry right now. And, I sit here on YouTube. I just voice my opinion, and it's absolutely pathetic what I see in a lot of these cases, like with the Ubisoft CEO saying it's malicious to sit there and make a list, a resume of video games that the company puts up on their own website, and then the employees of that company want to get that list taken down, saying it was malicious and hateful to have that out there. It wasn't. It literally was putting up a list of games that you put on your own resume. And that resume is telling of things that we have seen in the industry. And then people really start digging. And the dirt, the sunlight that's been shone on all of this right now is so great that it's just overpowering at this point. And that's why everyone's backing up. That's why the CEO of Ubisoft wants you to believe they're in the right. Well, they're a greedy corporation, another greedy corporation, trying to use the term of social justice to better and line their pockets. That's not good. That's evil in itself. They're trying to use the backs of people that have had disparaging histories and put it up there under the guise of social justice, under the guise of this diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're trying to put that out there and say, listen, if you don't support this, you're a bad person. No, most of us don't support this because you're doing it in a sense of greed. You're doing this from a sense of a corporation, in the sense of telling your customers how to think and how to do things. And that's why a lot of us stand up against it. Anyway, from Nova Scotia, from the harbor that seems to be clear out here today, you guys have yourselves a great day. I'm your Proud Canadian Phoenix Cinder Shadow. I'm signing off here. I will see you again very soon. And don't forget to like and subscribe.